You ever have one of those moments in your life where you're standing there, dead still, and somehow the world feels like it just snapped in half and nobody told you yet, like reality hasn't caught up to what your eyes just saw? Yeah, that was me, barefoot on cold hardwood at 3 in the morning, hair sticking out like a mad scientist, trying to remember if I was dreaming or if my house was actually screaming at me like a dying robot duck. The alarm wasn't gentle. It wasn't a soft, "Hey, wake up." No, it was a piercing, frantic beep that sounded like anxiety had learned to play trombone. And I swear, even the wallpaper was trembling a little. Most folks wake up to birds or sunlight or maybe their dog nudging them like, "Hey bro, it's breakfast." But me? No. I wake up to a machine shrieking bloody murder beside my son's bed because life decided to hand us a medical chapter nobody ever wants to read. Kane, my boy, 14 going on immortal in spirit, lying there fast asleep like he wasn't wired to a pump feeding him the nutrition his body refused to handle the easy way. That machine was our night shift guardian, and when it screamed, you moved. Didn't matter if it was 3 p.m. or 3 a.m. in a universe where sleep died 6 months ago. Lisa beat me to him, because somehow her feet defy physics when it comes to our kid. She teleports. I swear, I just stumble like a retired dinosaur trying not to throw out a hip. "Power's out," she said, voice already on the edge, hands moving fast across the controls like she was hacking into NASA. The house was dark, dead, silent except for the frantic alarm. And you know what's terrifying? Seeing the person you trust most in the world try to look calm while their eyes scream panic. We had a backup battery, hospital grade, doctor approved. One of those things insurance companies only pay for if you argue like a lawyer with a caffeine addiction. But backup means temporary. You don't relax when the safety net catches you. You panic because the rope above you snapped. I grabbed the flashlight, the heavy metal one. I could knock out a raccoon or signal a lighthouse. One, and walked into the kind of night that makes you feel small, like the world decided to stop spinning and you're the last guy who didn't get the memo. The neighborhood was quiet. Perfect, too perfect, like the brochure pictures of suburban heaven. All trim lawns and warm porch lights, and HOA rules so strict they probably regulate how aggressively your grass is allowed to feel. Kane slept through everything, because if teenagers had superpowers, his would be sleeping through apocalypses and still asking for waffles afterward. Out in the damp air, I followed the line from the meter box to the side of the house, sweeping that flashlight like I was doing a tactical inspection for imaginary burglars, and then I saw it. The thick black cable from our meter to Kane's backup system wasn't frayed, it wasn't chewed, it wasn't loosened, it was cut. Clean, deliberate, like someone crouched there with a tool and purpose. Time stopped. There's a kind of silence that comes when fear knocks on your ribs from the inside. And that was it. I didn't breathe. I didn't move. Because that wasn't nature. That wasn't chance. That was intent. Someone wanted that pump dead. Someone touched the lifeline that fed my kid. And in that moment, I swear something primal clicked in me. Not angry. Not yet. Just cold, razor-focused, like every cell in my body whispered protect. Lisa came out, saw the cable, and went quiet in that dangerous way she does when she's past fear and into calculation mode. "This wasn't random," she whispered. And she didn't have to say who we both thought of first. That name just lived in the air around us like rot we couldn't scrub out. The sun rolled up slow like it didn't want anything to do with this mess. I was hunched over the cable doing a back-alley electrical resurrection job that would make any licensed electrician cry when we heard it. A crisp slap on the front door. A letter. On HOA letterhead. Beautiful white envelope. Fancy Pigeon Eagle logo that always felt like it was judging me for breathing too loud. Violation notice. Timestamped 5:15 a.m. Unapproved external wiring. Fine, $100. Signed, Karen Deacon, HOA president. 5 minutes after I fixed the cut. She was watching. She was waiting. She wanted to catch me. And suddenly everything slid into sharp, horrifying clarity. See, Karen wasn't new in my life. We had history, office history. Years ago, she tried to turn after-work meetings into whatever version of romance a woman fueled by resentment and power fantasies imagines. I politely turned her down. I didn't shame her, didn't gossip. I just went home to my wife. Because I have a marriage worth more than flirtation and ego games. She hadn't forgotten. She hadn't forgiven. And here we were, in her territory now, suburbia, where petty monarchs rule with clipboards and bylaws. And if you give someone like her control over the gate, she'll think she owns the castle. Trash cans too visible? Fine. Driveway not beige enough. Warning. Basketball hoop not HOA-approved shade of black. Citation. But this? Cutting power to a medical line? This wasn't petty anymore. This wasn't a neighbor feud. This was a threat. A message. A war declaration written in copper wire and cold eyes watching from behind blinds. The ambulance drill day came next, a practice transport to make sure nothing went wrong before actual surgery. Except the paramedics couldn't get through the gate. Our code. Disabled. Logs. Showed Karen changed all guest codes that morning. No warning. No notice. Just sealed gates and a smirk unseen, but felt like a bruise. The HOA management company? Useless. We'll look into it. Yeah. Thanks. Call me when your moral backbone grows in. So we took it to a judge. Emergency protective order. Lisa laid out evidence like an attorney born from spreadsheets and righteous fury, and the judge stamped the order with the kind of force that said even he saw the monster in the details. We thought we were safe. We thought that paper meant something. Then surgery day came. Hospital lights humming sterile and hopeful. Nurses calm. Kane joking about Wi-Fi speeds. Kid had nerves of steel. And then a soft beep. Not panic yet, but warning. Dr. Evans checked the 4-pump, looked at the screen, and his face froze. Decimal moved. Dose increased tenfold. Lethal. Intentional. That moment changed everything. Hospital alarms. Code gray. Lockdown. Search teams. The pump sealed as evidence. Audit logs pulled. Security footage reviewed. And then, there she was. Karen. In a red sweater. Wearing a stolen volunteer badge. Walking away from my son's room. You ever feel your heartbeat stop and explode at the same time? Yeah, that. Security flooded the halls. Stairwell chase. She tried to run. Tried to scream about injustice like she was some kind of victim of fate, not the villain she chose to be. She lunged, slipped, cuffs snapped. And for a split second our eyes met through the stairwell rails. And I didn't see power. I didn't see rage. I saw emptiness, a life hollow enough to justify hurting a child for ego. The real world came crashing in after that. Police, lawyers, board meetings, charges stacking like bricks sealing her fate. Attempted murder. Tampering with medical equipment. Violation of court order. HOA board revolt. House auction to pay restitution. A name erased like a stain we all finally scrubbed too hard for her to survive socially. But that moment, the pump alarm, that flash of red sweater and hospital footage, that's when the universe stopped pretending that civility protects us and reminded me there's a difference between neighbor drama and evil choosing to wear suburban perfume. And I'm not the same man anymore. Because the day someone tries to take your kid from you, you learn something terrifying and holy about yourself. You will become whatever you must to stop them. And I did. There's a strange quiet that settles after the worst moment passes, like the world pauses, waiting to see who you turn into. After they dragged Karen down that hospital stairwell, cuffs cutting into the wrists of a woman who once wielded HOA newsletters like royal decrees, the universe gave me exactly 3 seconds where time froze. Then everything sped up like fate hit fast forward. Officers swarmed. Nurses whispered in furious, shocked tones. Kane sat propped up, still confused, still asking if his surgery was just paused, or if we were in a spy movie. Lisa held his hand, calm voice, shaking fingers, a mother lying with love in her eyes, saying, "It's all good, buddy. They just need to reset some machines." Meanwhile, she stared at me like we'd both aged 10 years in one afternoon. Then came the parade of investigators, the hospital attorneys, the security techs, the detective with tired eyes but fire in her voice. Screens replayed Karen's red sweater like it was a horror film on loop. The audit logs, the silent trace of a villain pressed into silicon memory, timestamps lining up exactly 8 minutes after the nurse programmed the dose. No staff badge, no authorization, just a ghost with rage in their veins. But here's the thing about monsters. They always leave footprints when they think they're walking on clouds. Hospital lockdown. News whispers spread like wildfire through white hallways. A kid in room 214 overheard a nurse and told his mom, who texted her sister, who posted in a Facebook mom group that turned into a wildfire of, "You won't believe this HOA psycho." The suburban grapevine is faster than the FBI. If gossip was currency, Whitehurst County could buy the Pentagon. And while chaos brewed, Kane just held his video game controller and said, "Do I still get ice cream after this?" That boy, stronger than me, braver than both of us combined, tethered to wires and still thinking about dessert. If courage had a face, it was his. But the battlefield wasn't done with us. Because petty evil doesn't dissolve when handcuffs click. Sometimes it thrashes harder on its way down. Karen made bail that afternoon. Yeah, attempted murder, tampering with medical equipment, violating a protective order, and still, someone rubber-stamped her temporary freedom like she just forgot to pay a parking meter. It was the kind of moment where justice feels like it's held together with twine and hope and a prayer you don't always believe in. We got home, exhausted, smelling like hospital disinfectant and fierce sweat. I barely had time to unload the overnight bag before my phone buzzed. Buddy Eli from down the street, sending a security clip. Karen's car circling our block. Slow. Predatory. Hunting. She had been out maybe 2 hours and already violated the protective order like it was a gym membership. Easy to ignore. Buddy's text with the clip came first. Thought you should see this. She wants round 2. Then another buzz. Police dispatch. Officers en route. Stay inside. Then another buzz. Kane. Dad, are we safe? And I swear, right there in that quiet hallway with grocery bags still at my feet, I felt every atom in my body pull into a single point of focus, like the universe dared me to break before she did. I kneeled, held his shoulders, looked right into those tired teenage warrior eyes and said, "Nobody touches you again. Ever." Sometimes promises aren't words. They're vows carved into bone. The police found her, arrested her again that night, bail revoked. No more second chances, no more prowling in her Lexus like a suburban ghost shark. The panic knot in my chest loosened half an inch. But survival isn't the same as peace. And winning isn't the same as recovery. Court was a whirlwind after that. Evidence piling high like a tower built brick by brick out of every choice she made. That surveillance clip Buddy captured? Gold. The gate access logs Lisa downloaded at 2 a.m. with red eyes and rage fingers? Gold. The 4-pump logs? Nuclear. The hospital footage of her in that fake volunteer vest, armed with malice and a stolen badge? Case ending. It was like watching a villain dig their own grave with an HOA-issued shovel. The board scrambled then. Suddenly they wanted no part of her empire. Emergency meeting, community clubhouse filled to bursting, neighbors buzzing like hornets kicked awake. People started sharing stories. The little fines, the targeted harassment, the surveillance complaints, a woman who cried when Karen shamed her for having a ramp installed for her disabled husband. The HOA minutes she manipulated like a cat, playing with string. Turns out, power doesn't just corrupt, it curdles. That meeting ended in a roar of relief. Karen stripped from the HOA, banned, disgraced. Kane's law, passed unanimously, automatic medical accommodations. No bureaucracy where there should only be compassion. And for the first time since the wire snapped, the house felt breathable. We sat on the couch that night in silence, not because we didn't have words, but because finally, we could rest in a moment without fear leaking through the windows. Then came sentencing. The judge looked at her, looked at us, and spoke like someone carving truth into stone. He listed charges like a drumline. Attempted murder, tampering with medical equipment, impersonating hospital personnel, burglary, violation of protective order. And when he said 20 years, 15 mandatory, there wasn't cheering, just a quiet collapse of tension, so heavy my shoulders slumped like someone cut invisible ropes. I didn't want revenge. I wanted safety. I wanted the nightmare to end. And in that courtroom, it finally did. Karen's world shrank to a jumpsuit, a cell, and the echo of a life wasted on resentment and envy. She looked at me like I ruined her. And maybe that's the tragedy. She ruined herself long before we ever crossed paths again. Then the strangest chapter, the healing one. Neighborhood calmer. HOA sane for the first time. Kids biking again. People waving again. Bake sales, barbecues, normalcy. And petty justice? Okay, yeah, we had some. Harmless stuff. Magazine subscriptions about ferrets and inspirational quotes. A glitter bomb timed to hit her lawyer's desk mid-review. Little reminders that yes, you messed with the wrong family. Not because vengeance heals, but because laughter does. Now Kane's good. Stronger. Wrestles with friends. Eats junk food. Argues about homework. the kind of normal that feels sacred. And sometimes late at night with porch light low and crickets playing background music, I sit outside and breathe in the quiet. Not the HOA-mandated quiet that feels like surveillance, but the quiet earned after surviving a storm alive and standing. You think you know yourself until someone threatens your child. Then you discover a version of you that doesn't freeze, doesn't flinch, doesn't break. You fight, you protect, you endure, and you win, not because you're the strongest, but because quitting isn't an option when your kid's heartbeat is on the line. Some battles don't ask if you're ready. They drag you in, and you find out who you are on the way out. And me? I found out I'm the dad who will burn every bridge, file every motion, call every cop, and stand in front of every threat laughing with shaking hands if that's what it takes to keep his son breathing. And I'd do it all again. The funny thing about peace is it doesn't arrive with fireworks or some big triumphant soundtrack blasting from the heavens. It just sneaks in one random afternoon when you're standing in the yard wondering if the hydrangeas survived winter, and suddenly you realize you're not listening for footsteps, not checking over your shoulder, not scanning the street like danger has a habit of wearing cardigans and power walking at 6 a.m. You're just breathing, existing, safe. 4 months after the verdict, I'd catch myself waking at night to check Kane's equipment, even though it was unplugged and sitting in a closet, a reminder of a past chapter that once held our whole world hostage. Lisa would sometimes sit on the edge of the bed, hand on my shoulder, whispering, "He's okay. We're okay." And I'd nod. But trauma has its own calendar, its own alarm clock, its own way of making you rehearse battles long after the war has ended. But life, stubborn and beautiful, fills the cracks. Kane recovered like he had a personal grudge against weakness. That kid laughed again, big belly laughs, the kind that bounce around the kitchen and stick to the walls like sunshine. He joined a robotics club, grew his hair too long, started arguing about curfews and gaming time like a normal teenager convinced his parents were medieval tyrants. He even started joking about the crazy HOA lady. And the day I heard humor instead of fear in his voice, I went to the pantry and cried like someone finally loosened the tightest knot in my soul. Kids heal in forward motion. Adults, we tend to look back and ask, why? Until we're dizzy. And neighbors? They change too. Funny how fear builds fences, but shared danger tears them down. The same people who once nodded politely across well-trimmed lawns now walked over with casseroles, folding chairs, and offers to help fix things. Folks waved again, stopped to talk, asked how Kane was doing, not as gossip, but as family. Community was reborn not in committee meetings, but in quiet evenings, shared toolboxes, and the kind of trust you only earn by walking through fire together. The HOA transformed overnight. No more petty fines for grass height. No more secret rule changes. No more power-tripping president with a vengeance list disguised as compliance notes. Instead, we had a board made of normal humans. People who genuinely wanted clean pools, working streetlights, and a neighborhood where no kid ever felt unsafe. Kane's Law became more than a bylaw. It became a symbol, a promise carved into the community that health and dignity always outrank aesthetics. Even Buddy Eli got a plaque at the annual block party, Neighborhood Watch MVP, engraved with 2 things he loved, a tiny sheriff star and a cartoon camera. He cried, big, proud, retired deputy tears that made everyone laugh and clap harder. But let me be honest, justice doesn't erase damage. It doesn't rewind sleepless nights or unburn the fuse of fear that once ran through your walls. It doesn't make you forget the moment you realize someone looked at your family and saw a target instead of neighbors. Justice isn't healing, it's closure. Healing is what you fight for afterward. One evening, months later, Lisa and I were outside again. This time on purpose, without that twitchy listen for trouble feeling. She had her wine. I had my cheap backyard beer because balance is important, and Kane was inside yelling at his video game friends about who forgot to revive him. And in that perfect quiet, Lisa asked the question we'd both danced around. Do you think she hates us still? I didn't answer right away. I stared at the fence, the same fence that once felt like a border between safety and threat. And I thought about Karen, sitting in a cell somewhere with nothing but time and regret and excuses she tells herself instead of truth. Hates a prison too, I finally said. I'm not in it anymore. Lisa exhaled like she'd been holding that breath for months. Good, she whispered, resting her head on my shoulder. We earned our freedom. And she was right, we did. But here's the part people don't always like to say out loud. I don't forgive her. I don't wish her well. I don't have some noble Hollywood monologue about rising above. Some wounds aren't meant to be polished into pearls. They stay scars, reminders carved into skin and memory that say, never again. And that's okay. Forgiveness isn't owed. Peace isn't gifted. It's chosen, fought for, protected like the child you swore you'd never lose to anyone's cruelty. And mine. He's laughing inside right now about pixelated dragons and digital swords, alive, loud, and home. That is peace. That is victory. That is everything. So yeah, we moved forward, not with grace, but with grit. We didn't just survive, we rebuilt. And now, when I drive past the community sign, the one that used to feel like a gatekeeper, I read the new motto they added under it. Whitehurst County, where neighbors protect neighbors. I suggested something catchier like, don't mess with the Tuttles, but they said branding matters. Now you're here, listening to this story, maybe shaking your head, maybe thinking this could never happen in your neighborhood. Maybe you're remembering the lady down the street who measures grass with a ruler, or the dude who complains about your recycling bin angle, or the board president who thinks a clipboard makes them royalty. So let me leave you with this. Home is supposed to mean safety, comfort, and rest, not fear, not control, not battlefields hidden behind beige siding and HOA newsletters. Power isn't inherently evil, but when it's used like a weapon instead of a responsibility, it becomes dangerous in the quietest, most suburban ways. And when someone like that decides your family is their target, you fight. You document. You call the cops. You go to court. You stand tall even when your knees shake. Because the moment you give someone like that control over your peace, you lose home. And we didn't lose ours. So tell me, what do you think? Was justice enough? Did she deserve more? Have you ever faced a HOA tyrant, a petty neighbor, someone who thought authority meant domination? Drop your story. Drop your anger. Drop your victories. The comments are open. Because every neighborhood has a Karen. But it only takes one family, one ordinary, tired, terrified, stubborn family, to say, not this house, not this kid, not ever. What would you have done? Would you forgive her, or let the sentence speak for itself? And what's your HOA nightmare story? Tell me in the comments. And if you want more real justice in real neighborhood stories, hit like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear that fighting back is worth it. Asterisk asterisk. Until next story, stay safe, stay loud, and may your HOA minutes always be boring.